Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Josh Wonders Why, the first one of 2025. I'm here as usual with Pastor Kelly, and she's going to help shed the light on all the questions we have tonight. So if you're new to Josh Wonders Why, it's a weekly discussion, conversation that I have with Pastor Kelly and you all that are watching us live, just about a variety of topics. We try to tackle a variety of topics, whether it's biblical question, a religious question, a current events question, a food question. We try to cover everything, I guess.
Food question.
No topics.
Send your food questions.
Yeah. No topics are off limits except maybe math, as Kelly doesn't like
That's
math.
right.
But that's why I'm here. That's the one question I can answer. Everything else will go straight to Kelly, right?
Probably not the food questions.
The food questions?
That's probably not a good idea.
We're gonna do a tasting coming up. We got that subscription service.
Well,
We're
that's
gonna try to
okay.
taste
Yes.
some stuff. What's
Yes.
that called? The Tasty Box? No, that's not it.
No,
I can't recall what it's called.
I don't remember either. I just know it's not that.
Okay, so we'll do that maybe in a couple weeks. If you watched us before, we took last Monday off, but the previous Monday was December 23rd. We sampled some variety of international treats and snacks that people have, around the holidays. I think we enjoyed mostly the sweets. Some of the savories were questionable, like
Yeah.
the hummus chips. I'm trying to think of the other one. Oh, the
haggis chips.
haggis chips. I'm
The
sorry, not
haggis
hummus
chips.
The other one that I meant to bring more in because I still have them are the pine flavored hard
No,
candies.
no.
Those are the ones, if you're interested in trying that, if you like just chewing on a Christmas tree, that's what it tastes like. And the funny thing is, the taste got more potent the more you sucked on it. Like it got worse and worse.
I couldn't even keep it in my mouth that long. So.
So while we're waiting for people to join, maybe people are still joining. How was your break?
It was good. Yeah.
I saw on the Wednesday Wins that you are a bat whisperer. You like to, you have lots of bat friends and you can move them out of your cabin.
I like bats. I think they're really cute, and they eat a lot of insects and mosquitoes especially. And so I like to have them around, but not in my house. They're not allowed in my house. So when one comes into the house, he has to go.
Do you know how it got in?
No.
Did you figure that out? Okay.
No, unless it was kind of hibernating up in the chimney or something. I don't know.
Okay. That just was an odd thing that you mentioned in the Wednesday Wins.
Yeah, well, it was odd because all of a sudden I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and here he is just flying around the room.
And you're able to get him out by yourself. Like Tony didn't help. You just did
He wasn't there.
Oh, he wasn't?
I was the
Okay.
only one there.
That's impressive.
He was going to call a neighbor, and I'm like, I don't need anybody to help me get a bat.
See, I would have probably just said, that's it. I'm going outside. I'm calling someone. I'm just going to wait for someone to show up. That's their problem.
No, I worry about hurting them. I don't want to hurt them.
See, I worry about getting rabies and getting
Well,
bitten.
yes, I don't want to. I'm not going to just pick them up with my hand and get bitten, because he did show me his teeth, but I'm not afraid of them.
Okay.
I didn't have any gloves though, so I had to use an oven mitt, and so that wasn't as good as having gloves. But I got them out.
Well, that's good.
I felt bad because it was so cold, but I don't know where you're going, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, it was nice and warm inside. It was comfortable. So one thing I want to ask you all as you're watching us is, as we're going into this new year, I want to make sure that we have conversations that are relevant to all of you, that you enjoy listening to. So if there's any topics you would like us to tackle, any questions you have, put in the comments here, post them. I did a Finally Friday last Friday asking for additional topics, because Kelly and I can keep coming up with topics, but we'd like to discuss what's relevant to you. So if there's certain stuff that's on your mind, feel free to chime in, and we love to discuss stuff that's relevant to you all. Unless everything that we come up is just straight from God and is relevant for everybody online, right?
Are you saying it's prophetic?
It may be prophetic, yeah. Which feeds us into the topic for tonight. But again, yeah, if there's anything you'd like us to discuss or tackle, and maybe if it's in depth, we could do a multi-part study, but just let us know. So tonight's topic, as we sort of alluded to, and I mentioned in a teaser this morning, as we're coming into 2025, I came across a news article about a modern-day Christian prophet that's making some predictions for this year. So it made me start thinking about, for modern day Christian prophets versus the biblical prophets, are modern day prophets real deal? Are they false? The prophets the Bible warns us about. How are we as Christians supposed to take these so-called prophets that are getting messages direct from God, nowadays, and how are we supposed to know if they're trustworthy or not? So that's what I want to discuss tonight.
All right, sounds good.
And your answer will probably be it's complicated, but we can talk about it.
Well, and if you have any insights or questions about modern day prophets, or if you're wondering if, someone that you've heard of is the real deal or not, put that in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. So I came across one specific prophet, or at least a modern day prophet, that I was going to read parts of the article about just to get the discussion going and then have this discussion. I see you have your laptop here, so it sounds like you may be well prepared with multiple files to answer all of our questions.
No, I just couldn't print it out.
Okay, that's fair too.
I just was typing notes, but then I couldn't print them out, so I just brought the whole thing.
So the article I came across was posted on January 1st, so it's pretty relevant. But the title was "Prophet Who Predicted the Israel-Hamas Conflict Says 2025 Could Usher in an Era of War for the World," which, as we were talking about before, that's pretty generic prophecy. I could say that every year and probably be right about some corner of the world.
Yeah.
But as it goes into, there's a Christian prophet who claims to see visions from God, has prophesied that there will be war in 2025, which he claims will be a very bittersweet year. And he says, God showed me that these conflicts, Gaza and Ukraine, would have the potential to spark into something wider that might pull in America and other nations. And this preacher, his name is Joshua Giles. Good first name. I'm not sure about the actual person, but he's a founder of the Kingdom Assembly Ambassador Worship Center in Minneapolis. He says he's been receiving messages, dreams, and visions from God ever since he was a kid, like some sort of celestial interpreter. In 2020, 3 years before the Israel-Hamas conflict, Giles said he saw an outbreak again of violence and war in Israel and Middle East. He said his grim visions foretold that 2025 would have the potential to be an entrance into an era of war for the world. And he says he believes America and other nations could be increasingly roped in as well. He did also go on to say, besides that, on international, he said he did see an increase of terrorist activity in U.S. soil. He said, one of the recent prophecies that I shared was about rising terror attacks that I saw against the United States. So I really do believe that this is just an era of that, and we're just kind of coming into, I believe, that there's going to be more darkness or evil on the rise. However, he added that he was praying for peace and believing that some of these things can be averted.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
I guess it all says that, so his forecast for the future hasn't been all doom and gloom, particularly when it comes to medicine. And he says, I saw certain cures that would come for common diseases that people have thought would be incurable and doctors have said were incurable. I saw us coming into a period of advancement of medicine and technology where there would be certain cancers that would be cured and other diseases that would be cured. So in ending, Giles urged people to focus on the good because there's a lot of good in the world. And he says, I believe that God will give us all wisdom and peace to navigate when challenges do arise, like some of these visions that I've shared. So I came across this. Now, I came across this in the New York Post, which you could argue whether that's refutable or a trustworthy news site. But it is interesting that it is making the news that there's a prophet who's Christian, claims he's called by God, and making some prophecies for this upcoming year. So we got to believe him, right? Because he's a Christian preacher from Minneapolis, right?
Well, I don't know the man, so
yeah.
I've never spoken to him or, questioned him, so I can't, I can't just declare him to be a liar. But here's what I'll say about prophets in general.
Okay.
Prophets, biblical type prophets, do not predict the future. They give insight and perception to current conditions. And they may say, if things don't change, or if we don't change, then these things could happen. So if you read the biblical prophets, they were speaking on behalf of God, to say, this is the way it is, and if we don't change our ways, then this is what could happen. Also, prophets spoke about issues of the time, and like injustice, forgetting about the poor, things like that. That was really their focus. If they said, look, God has abandoned you because you have forgotten the poor, you haven't held up your end of the covenant. So it wasn't, they weren't making predictions like this, yeah.
So then, using the biblical definition, or the definition you gave of the biblical prophets, one of the gifts of the spirits is prophecy.
Yes.
And is the prophecy that Paul's talking about, what you mentioned is warning about if you don't change your ways, there will be worse things to come, and also trying to bring, I guess, social justice as well, right? That's more of the prophets that Paul is thinking about in the gifts of the Spirit.
It's like Tony said, we're all called by God.
Yeah.
All Christians are called to be prophetic, meaning that we should bring attention to things that need to be addressed, like justice issues, So that's what people who have the gift of prophecy, they are able to see things and communicate them clearly. And, biblical prophets were not popular.
Yeah.
And nobody would have wanted to buy their books had they written books. They did not tell people what they wanted to hear, except false prophets did. Yeah. False prophets would cozy up with kings and leaders and tell them what they wanted to hear. And God really hated that and spoke about that.
Yeah. And I was curious, because I was curious if all prophets were rejected or if some were accepted. And the ones that came across when I was looking at maybe the mainstream rejected prophets, it gave the example of Ezekiel, because he was one of the first to be exiled to Babylon, and he was called by God to warn the people of Judah that they would face a terrible future if they didn't change their ways. Like you said, warning, don't change your ways. And people didn't like him because of that. There's also Jeremiah. They said his prophecies that Jeremiah gave led to plots to kill him. The priests plotted to kill him because they're unhappy with his message about changing their ways, because they didn't like his message. And then you can have, you can argue, Paul with preaching to non-Jewish people, in his prophecies that he saw. So, I mean, all those prophets, like you said, were preaching against, changing your ways, and social justice, and that went against the social norm of the time of the leaders, the religious leaders, right?
Yeah. So to have someone like Josh Giles say, I am a prophet, God sends me visions and dreams, and then I just tell you what God's told me, that doesn't really fit the definition of a biblical prophet. As far as the prophets that we read in the Bible, they were not saying these general things like, hey, there may be war here next year. That's, and the thing is, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
That the things that he's saying, that's not helpful to us. Generalizations about there will be terrorist attacks, and then you can take anything that happens. Oh, see, the school shooting, terrorist attack in the U.S. So
Yeah, no,
sure.
what we could have, I mean, if he was really, according to that biblical standard, he could have said, war will increase unless we do this, this, and this, right? That could be something that maybe,
Yeah,
warning against, the war, the escalate, it could escalate more if we as Christians don't try to do this to, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what the answer is because no
Well,
one solved it yet.
and
But
also, the biblical prophets were dealing with the Hebrew nation,
yeah,
and they had a specific covenant with God, and it's just that's not the way it is anymore, because when Jesus came for everyone. So because of that, we can't make prophecy about just a certain group of people. But
okay.
yeah, it's just different. I don't know that we're really going to have people like Isaiah and Ezekiel and Jeremiah and Amos who are going to be that radical and,
Yeah, Tony made a comment saying once Jesus came, there's really no need for prophecy. We already know what's going to happen. Jesus will come again. Plus, there's nothing new under the sun. So does that mean then Jesus was the last prophet? There hasn't been any prophets since Jesus, right?
Yeah, that's what some people say.
It was the end, right?
That's what some people say. Jesus was the last prophet,
Okay.
and the end, and there won't be any more. So that's where you have to discern between, being a prophet or being prophetic, because we're all called to be prophetic. We're all called to say, look, we are not doing a good job as Christians.
Yeah.
Taking care of this. We ought to focus on this. And people don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
That's the thing, prophecy often calls us to task.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same thing with the biblical prophets, and nobody wanted to hear that because it was uncomfortable and you'd have to do something about it. So, they tried to kill him.
It is funny, though. I was looking at some of the prophets that they were accepting their times. And I think some of the prophets, like, I think about Joseph, and I think it's funny that they're more accepted by people of other religions, like the Egyptian Pharaoh relied on Joseph to help interpret his dreams, but his own brothers made fun of him when he gave what his dreams were, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're rejected by their own nation, but accepted by a foreign nation.
Yeah. The other thing that we have to be careful of is that modern day prophets are often people who start cults. They call themselves a prophet. They say they're getting direct revelation from God, and Joseph Smith and Brigham Young with Mormonism. We found this new part of the Bible, or God gave me this revelation, told me to write it all down, or I'm not sure how we were given the golden tablets or something,
Yeah.
And so it was like, we have a New Testament, but now here's the sequel. I don't know. And so then that developed into a cult. Jim Jones, I'm speaking on behalf of God. This is what God wants you to do. David Koresh, speaking for God. And in Jeremiah 23, God gets really angry at people who say they're speaking for him, but they're not. So
yeah,
I think we have to be careful with that too. I'm not saying that this Josh Giles is a cult leader. I'm just saying that a lot of cults have a prophet or someone who acts as a prophet.
Sure. No, I was reading his biography, or he has like on his website or on the church website what about Josh Giles, and he's a good salesman. He says he's a consecrated servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. He has a heart of a worshiper, never-ending pursuit for God. He is used of God as an anointed apostle and prophet to the nations. He has been anointed to advance the kingdom of God through media. He's been featured on various TV and media platforms. So it goes on, just he claims how much, God has anointed him to bring these prophecies.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's just tough. I guess the struggle I have too is that, on one side, my struggle is, based on what we were talking about, are we are we to believe, are we to take, he says, well, God told me this, okay? Who am I to disagree with God? And I think so there are some people that may hear this and believe, yeah, he is a prophet. But on the flip side, my concern is people from the outside, non-Christians looking in, saying there's a bunch of, crazy people. This guy's claiming to be a prophet, right? He's in some way, he's giving Christians a bad name in this.
And I'm not going to deny that people hear from God, and that people receive messages from God, and that God speaks through people. I'm not denying that at all. And I think you find this to be much more common and acceptable in, say, charismatic churches, and and we just have to be careful. We just have to be discerning about what we're hearing and who we're listening to, who we're willing to believe and follow, and to how does that compare with what Scripture says, with what Jesus says. We just have to be careful with it, and I think there are a lot of modern day prophets, even if they don't call themselves prophets. People look at them as prophets. Either they are prophesying blessings on all their viewers. God is going to favor you. You have to just believe. Send me some seed money, whatever it is. God's going to favor you. God's going to pay you back double. All these kind of things. Or they're trying to create fear in people. The end is near. Are you sure you're right with God? Maybe you are in the wrong denomination, or something. So I think when we look at people who are promising us good things, or they're trying to scare us, I find that very suspicious.
Okay. Well, makes sense.
I'm not saying that God's not going to bless people. Yeah. I'm just saying I would never say, all of you people that are hearing my sermon today, you're all going to get a blessing. Okay, but what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And, or if you just increase your giving to the church, God will pay you back. I'm not going to say that. Yeah. I don't know that. I don't think that's true. So I think we have to be careful.
Is that something that did Jesus ever say that when he was preaching during that time? Yeah. He say, "Follow me, you're gonna, make loads of money."
Jesus said, "In this world, you will have trouble."
Yeah.
So when there are preachers that are telling you that if you have trouble, then you have unconfessed sin, or you've done something wrong, or you're not believing enough. No, Jesus said we were going to have trouble.
Yeah.
So he didn't say you will have trouble if you do this or this or this. He just said you're going to have trouble. If we're going to follow Jesus, we are going to have trouble in our life, because following Jesus isn't easy. And Jesus said we have to count the cost. To take up your cross and follow me. So it's not like, I just have a real problem with preachers who trying to make everybody feel good. I'm not against, yes.
That's a good point, Tony.
Yeah.
So Tony's saying these days people just want to hear what they want to believe and will follow that, often without honestly questioning. So that's a good point. I feel they want to feel good, a feel good sermon every week. I knew that one of the churches that we used to attend years ago in a different city, one of the main preachers, he would, most of his sermons every week, he would change it like the night before, and it would be more of maybe a more pessimistic type sermon, and people were complaining, saying, "Hey, you need to be more upbeat with your sermons." But he was, I guess, I respected the stuff he was trying to say to warn people against, unless we change our ways, this is going to happen and stuff, and using stuff in the Bible. Now, I did have some good sermons about love and stuff, but I think the critique most people gave him is he always preaches pessimistically. Yeah. He's got to preach positively all the time. But
I think there's a way to preach hope without giving false hope.
Yeah.
Without just making everything rainbows and butterflies, and if you follow Jesus, everything is going to be hunky dory. But yeah, so I think we can preach hope. We should preach hope, while at the same time acknowledging the difficulties of life.
Yeah.
Well,
that's good. It's been a good discussion on this prophet. Appreciate you helping us out, and I appreciate you all watching us.
Yeah, if you know Josh Giles, just hook him up with this.
Sure.
We'll do a Zoom call with him. We'll ask him questions.
But again, like I mentioned at the beginning, if there are any other topics you'd like to cover this year as we go into 2025, put them in the comments. Put different posts out there. Send us a private message, direct message. We'd love to discuss any topics that are relevant to you. Speaking of prophets, this Thursday. No, not this Thursday.
Did you see the last comment there?
Let's see. So Tony's just said Kelly sometimes has feel-good sermons because they're short and we get out of church early. Beat the crowd to brunch. I like that. That's a good.
That's not entirely true.
So again, speaking of prophets, this Thursday, Digging Deep, you're going to be talking about the Magi, and they're considered some type of prophet because as they showed up following a star that they thought was going to lead they said is going to lead them to the Messiah, right?
Well, and it's interesting because they were astrologers. And astrology predicts the future. So we'll talk more about.
So we'll continue this discussion on prophets on Thursday.
The Magi are important.
Yeah. No, I think just recently I always discounted their story, but I think what you're going to talk about on Friday makes them more relevant and opened my eyes, like in the past, to how they are relevant to the story, the Christmas story.
They're not just a nice add-on to the nativity set.
They're not just three kings of Orient are. They're more than just the three gifts they brought. So
yes,
we'll learn more about that on Thursday. So tune in for Digging Deep at 7:00 on Thursday to hear that, and we'll be back next Monday for another Josh Wonders Why. And I have some topics that I think I'm planning to discuss. But if there's anything on your minds, let us know again, and we'd love to talk about those as well. So until next time, we'll see you in the comments.
See ya.